Once, three great civilizations stood as beacons of beauty, intellect, and design: the Ottoman Empire, the Persian dynasties, and the Andalusian Golden Age in Spain. Today, we walk through broken tiles and faded scrolls, unaware of the majestic art, architecture, and fashion that once dazzled the world. These are the lost styles of forgotten Islamic worlds. Point 1. Ottoman Elegance. The lost styles of a golden empire. Let's start our journey in the heart of Istanbul, once known as Constantinople, the capital of the mighty Ottoman Empire. This empire ruled for over 600 years, stretching across 3 continents: Asia, Europe, and Africa. But beyond its powerful armies and famous sultans, the Ottomans were also masters of beauty, design, and fashion. One of the most unique styles that the Ottomans developed was in architecture. Look at any famous mosque in Istanbul, like the Süleymanî Mosque or the Blue Mosque, and you'll see massive domes, tall minarets, and incredible tilework. These buildings weren't just places of worship. They were a statement. This is the home of beauty, balance, and faith. Inside these mosques, the walls were decorated with Islamic tiles, famous for their blue, green, and red floral patterns. The tulip was one of the most loved symbols in Ottoman art. Why the tulip? Because it represented paradise, peace, and even the name of Allah in secret symbolic form. But Ottoman beauty didn't stop with architecture. Their fashion and clothing styles were just as rich. If you were a sultan, a vizier, or part of the royal family, you wore layered silk kaftans with detailed gold embroidery. Some of these garments had sleeves that reached the ground and patterns that told stories about nature, rank, or power. Even the headwear was special. The sultans wore massive ceremonial turbans, sometimes as high as 40 centimeters. They weren't just for fashion. They symbolized wisdom, dignity, and the weight of leadership. Then there's the forgotten art of Ebru, also known as Ottoman marbled paper. This was an ancient technique where artists created floating designs on water, then transferred them onto paper. These magical, cloud-like patterns were used in Qurans, official documents, and royal letters. Today, Ebru is rarely practiced, and only a few master artists still keep the tradition alive. Another style that has almost disappeared is the Ottoman court music. It was slow, spiritual, and deeply emotional. Instruments like the ney, reed flute, oud lute, and cannon, zither, created melodies that were meant to calm the soul and bring the listener closer to God. And let's not forget Ottoman calligraphy. Writing was not just communication, it was art. Verses of the Quran were written in elegant Arabic script and displayed on walls, ceilings, and domes. These calligraphers trained for years to master each stroke, because writing the name of Allah or a verse of the Quran had to be done with perfect intention and skill. Sadly, much of this beauty is now forgotten. When the Ottoman Empire fell after World War I and the modern Republic of Turkey was formed, the country went through major changes. Traditional clothes were banned. Arabic script was replaced with Latin letters, and many ancient arts were abandoned in favor of Western styles. What once filled the palaces and streets of Istanbul is now found only in old photographs, dusty museums, or fading memories. But all is not lost. Today, a small number of artists, historians, and designers are trying to revive these lost Ottoman styles. They are learning the old techniques, wearing traditional clothes, and teaching new generations about the forgotten beauty of their ancestors. The Ottoman world was more than a political empire. It was a civilization of style, of color, of divine beauty. And while its power may be gone, its soul still lives on in every surviving pattern, prayer, and piece of silk. Point 2. Persian perfection. The art of paradise now forgotten. Now we journey east, into the magnificent world of Persia, home of poets, kings, and artists. The Persian civilization, especially during the Safavid dynasty, 1501 to 1736, created some of the most elegant and spiritual designs in the Islamic world. Their goal was not just to build things or decorate. They wanted to reflect paradise on earth. Let's begin with Persian architecture. Have you ever seen the Shah Mosque in Isfahan? Its walls are covered in blue and turquoise tiles, with tiny floral and geometric patterns that seem endless. These aren't just decorations. They're a form of visual dhikr, a reminder of the perfection and infinity of Allah. The ceilings look like stars, designed to make you feel like you're standing under the heavens. In Persian cities, gardens were a central part of daily life. The famous Chahar Bagh style, a garden divided into 4 parts with water flowing through, symbolized the 4 rivers of paradise described in the Quran. These gardens were carefully planned to reflect balance, harmony, and spiritual rest. Today, many of these gardens are either destroyed or no longer kept in their original form. But perhaps the most beautiful part of Persian culture was their miniature painting. Persian miniatures are tiny paintings, full of color and detail, that often illustrated stories from Persian poetry or history. They showed kings, lovers, battles, and even angels, all surrounded by golden skies, trees, and architecture. These were painted by hand with brushes made from squirrel hair. Sadly, this sacred art is now nearly extinct. Only a few artists in Iran and Central Asia still practice it. Persian fashion was also full of grace. Men and women wore flowing robes made from silk, velvet, and fine cotton, often with gold thread embroidery. This embroidery, called zardozi, was done by hand, using real gold or silver wire. It was worn by royalty, scholars, and even warriors going into battle, because beauty and strength walked together in Persian culture. Even more impressive was Persian carpet weaving. These weren't just rugs for walking on, they were pieces of spiritual art. Each carpet told a story. Some showed gardens, others had verses from the Quran, and many were designed to look like the gates of paradise. These carpets were given as royal gifts to kings in Europe and are still considered among the most valuable in the world. But what happened to all this beauty? In the modern era, after invasions, wars, and revolutions, especially the 20th century, many of these traditional arts were either banned, forgotten, or replaced with factory-made designs. Today, many young Iranians have never even seen a traditional Persian miniature or worn zardozi clothing. Art schools stopped teaching these styles. Museums locked them behind glass. Only a few master artists and families continue the old techniques, often in small villages or private studios. But it's not enough to keep the tradition alive on a large scale. Yet there is hope. Some modern designers in Iran, Pakistan, and the West are now bringing back Persian aesthetics in fashion, home design, and even video games. They are reintroducing the world to the elegance of old Persia, not just as history, but as a living style. Persian perfection was not about showing off. It was about beauty with soul. Every tile, thread, and brushstroke had a meaning, a connection to heaven. These lost styles remind us that beauty, when done for the sake of Allah, becomes a form of worship. Let us not forget them. Let us rediscover them and revive the art of paradise. Point 3. Andalusian brilliance, the lost light of Islamic Spain. Now let's travel west, to the land where Islam once met Europe, science danced with poetry, and East fused with West. Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. From the 8th to the 15th century, cities like Córdoba, Granada, and Seville became shining stars of the Islamic world. But Al-Andalus wasn't just about empires or politics. It was about a way of life, a world of beauty, knowledge, and culture that shaped both the Islamic and European civilizations. Today, most of it is forgotten. The most famous symbol of Andalusian brilliance is the Alhambra Palace in Granada. This palace wasn't just built to impress. It was built to reflect paradise. Its walls are covered with arabesque patterns, Quranic verses, and muqarnas, honeycomb-like designs that seem to melt down from the ceiling like divine geometry. Every space in the Alhambra is planned with symmetry, water, and light. Fountains gently flow in the courtyards, and shadows dance through intricately carved windows. It's said that the architecture of Al-Andalus doesn't shout. It whispers, like a prayer made of stone. But beauty in Andalusia didn't stop with buildings. Andalusian fashion, especially during the Umayyad and Nasrid periods, was influenced by both Arab and local Spanish styles. Men wore long robes, often with colorful silk sashes, while women wore flowing dresses with delicate embroidery. Many of the fabrics were dyed using techniques brought from the East, like indigo, saffron, and cochineal red. These garments were so elegant that even European Christian nobles began copying the Andalusian styles. In fact, the word elegance in European culture owes much to Muslim Spain. Andalusia was also a world of music. One of the greatest forgotten musicians of history was Ziryab, a man originally from Baghdad who brought new instruments, rhythms, and musical systems to Spain in the 9th century. He introduced the oud, the grandfather of the modern guitar, and helped develop a style of music that later influenced flamenco. That's right, the famous Spanish flamenco has deep Islamic and Arabic roots. The rhythm, hand claps, even the emotional expression in flamenco all trace back to Ziryab and the musicians of Al-Andalus. Another lost treasure is Andalusian poetry and calligraphy. Poets wrote in Arabic, mixing Islamic themes with nature, love, and longing for Allah. Their handwriting was a form of art, calligraphy that decorated walls, palaces, and even weapons. Many of these poems survived only because they were secretly copied and hidden after the fall of Islamic rule. So what happened? In 1492, the last Muslim kingdom of Granada fell to the Christian forces during the Reconquista. After that, everything began to disappear. Arabic was banned. Islamic books were burned. Mosques were destroyed or turned into churches. Many Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity or leave their homes. The style, the language, the fashion, all erased. This was not just a political loss. It was the destruction of a culture.